This is my first video in a long time and I'm not sure what to say. I started practicing Nichiren Buddhism about 8 years ago as a way to try to feel a bit more grounded, like my life had purpose and meaning. There was a time where I felt really empty and a bit lost. I really didn't know what I was doing with my life. And Nichiren Buddhism kind of found me. A friend at work told me about it, this Nam-myoho-renge-kyo thing, and I thought, that just sounds weird. And I went to a couple of meetings and thought, this is interesting. Like, what is this? At first I thought, is this some kind of strange cult where people sit around and chant strange Chinese words at a box on the wall? So it was very odd at first. And over the last 8 years, I practiced with passion and determination and felt like a lot of great things happened. 8 years have gone by. I'm a little bit older, 37 now. And yeah, a lot of amazing stuff's happened in my life. I've challenged myself. I've had ups and downs like everyone has. And last year, 2016, I stopped for the most part. I still chanted like now and again, but I stopped. I didn't really practice like I used to, and I stepped away from it for a while. But interestingly, it was always there in the back of my mind. I was always chanting in the back of my mind, walking in the shower, whatever, always thinking about it, always kind of considering it, rolling the idea of what is Nam-myoho-renge-kyo around in my mind. And after a lot of difficult back and forth, I decided to take a step back from the SGI, which is the Soka Gakkai International. It's a lay Buddhist movement, around 12.5 million members worldwide. And I decided to take a step back from it. And the main reason I've done that is because I felt like I wanted to get to know this practice on my own without the pressure of a religious organization. Now, there's a lot of amazing people in the SGI. There's no denying that. It's in many countries all over the world, and wherever you go, you're likely to be welcomed in by the SGI family. But I think what I've realized is that I'm not really someone who wants to be confined by a single belief system. Even though Nichiren Daishonin, the Buddhist monk who developed Nichiren Buddhism, he said, to paraphrase, he said sort of essentially don't mix practices. But I think really my belief is that he was talking about the practices of the time in Japan, which were quite contradictory to what Nichiren Buddhism was about. And in a nutshell, Nichiren Buddhism is about freedom, freeing yourself from the confines of your own mind, your emotions, and perhaps also sort of challenging the status quo. Nichiren was a monk in the 13th century in Japan, born to a fisherman's family and born to a fisherman, and he was a political activist and stood up against the feudal Japanese government, and that's always inspired me, and in fact partly led me to practicing veganism or becoming a vegan, because in many of his letters he does refer to and talk about not eating animals, which many very religious and devout Buddhists did at the time. Now, of course, I'm very aware there are many Buddhists that obviously eat meat and kill animals as well, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't practice Buddhism if you eat meat. Obviously you can. I do want to sort of discuss this in a later video about the nature of compassion and Buddhism and veganism. How do those things intersect? There came a point where I just thought, how am I sitting here teaching people about Nichiren Buddhism or Buddhism, which has compassion at its very core, yet I am partaking in violence on my plate 3 times a day, whether that's eating pigs, cows, chickens. I don't know if you've ever seen a slaughterhouse video, but to me, that is violence. That is the absolute most epitome of violence. Taking an animal that doesn't want to die and slitting its throat. for your bacon sandwich or for your sausage sandwich. Obviously, I was a part of that system. I grew up in that system, and in many ways, when I look back, I feel like it's like looking back through a misty window. Everyone else that you love and care is on the other side, and you're sort of there trying to sort of share what you've learned, and people can't really hear you properly. The vegans get so much attacked so much about our beliefs and what we feel. People say, oh, we're shoving our beliefs down other people's throats. But when you start to realize the implications of what the human food system has created with things like factory farming, it is absolutely horrific. I watched a film called Earthlings, which is narrated by Joaquin Phoenix, which basically talks about the destructive nature of man and how we have really placed ourselves at the top of the food chain, just self-appointed ourselves at the top of the food chain and decided that we're above all other earthlings on this planet, even though they have just as much right to live here as we do. So that really changed, and that really started to interfere with my practice, because it made me think, how am I in a spiritual practice that doesn't even discuss this, doesn't even highlight it or talk about it? And when I did bring it up or talk about it to sort of senior leaders or older members within the SG organization, it was often kind of disregarded, dismissed, and I was reminded people have their personal choice. But here's a great analogy about it when it comes to this kind of thing, right? So you're in a garden and your next door neighbor has a water pipe, and they are pouring water all over their garden, and they're pouring water and they're pouring water and they're pouring water, and the water is running out into the streets, and it's flooding your street, and it's flooding everything else in down the road, and it's washing all the flowers away and the plants away. Wouldn't you say something? Wouldn't you have a compassionate word with your neighbor and say, are you aware that your actions are having a damaging effect on the environment around you? In Nichiren Buddhism, there's a concept called oneness of self and environment, and this is an integral part of our practice, that we as living beings we live in harmony and unison with the environment around us. Not in harmony necessarily, but we live in unison with it, and everything that we do, everything that we think, everything that we say has an impact and is reflected back to us. And our food and our diet and our treatment of animals is no different to that. How we treat animals and how we affect the environment will come back to bite us in the ass. And I think that we have a moral obligation to do something, and especially as Buddhists, if we're there telling people about compassion and loving kindness, how is it that we are partaking in the violence towards animals on a daily basis, 3 times a day? Every time you go to the supermarket and you buy something, you are paying for somebody else to commit a violent act on an animal, a sentient being that didn't want to die. And of course you might say, oh, but we've always eaten meat, and it's important we've always eaten meat. We've also always been involved in wars. There was slavery for hundreds of years, and there still is slavery. Just because we've always done it doesn't mean that we should keep doing it. There are millions of people around the world who practice a vegan lifestyle and eat the vegan diet and are healthy, who are thriving. I have so many testimonies of people I know, and seen people in fitness and exercise professionals who are strong, muscular, fit. I'm working on a project with one of my good friends, Klaus Mitchell, called Plant-Based News, and we're developing a platform to kind of educate people through news and education around the power of plants and just how they can heal. Not as a replacement for modern medicine, but in a way to sort of support it and suggest that, for too long now we've been consuming too many animal products, and it's actually, it's causing an incredible amount of disease and also environmental destruction. I'll link a video in the description, and please check out Cowspiracy. It's a brilliant film that talks a lot about the environmental damage being done by animal agriculture. So back to SGI. So why did I leave? essentially, in a nutshell, being in the SGI came at odds with my new belief system, or my new beliefs, or my new values. And I just became a bit frustrated with the bureaucracy and the kind of the speed at which things change. I'm somewhat an impatient person, I guess, and I do sometimes feel like, you know, being impatient is not a gift. But I think at the same time, I'm a person of action. When I see a problem, I want to solve it, I want to fix it. So I worked very hard to kind of try to bring people together in lots of different ways, and I was met with opposition after opposition after opposition so many times, whether it was doing something for refugees or doing a community project with people in the SGI. So it's difficult. Like, a lot of people have asked me, why have you left, on social media. But interestingly, I stopped going to meetings after 8 years of being in this organisation and never saw anyone. So it's been a year, and there's people who live around the corner from me who I thought were good friends who I haven't seen in almost a year. Really, we're spending time within a year. And that was kind of sad, I thought. And then, but people have said to me, oh, you know, it's up to you to make the first move, blah, blah, blah. People are just respecting your privacy. But I think, I don't know, I still think that, like, a message just to say, how are you? How are things? I think that doesn't go amiss. I've got a couple of, you know, I shouldn't exaggerate. There are a couple of people who have checked in on me and asked how I am. And I'm connected on social media to a lot of people, so that does make a big difference. But I don't know where I'm going with this video. I guess really it's just to sort of talk about a few things, really, like veganism, Buddhism, and talk about the kinds of topics I'd like to start talking about. I don't know where I want to take this channel. To be honest, I understand and know the benefits of Nichiren Buddhism and just how much it has positively affected people's lives. And I think that I will continue to share it with people because I know that it has a powerful effect on people. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'm not sure where I'm going to go next, but I'm glad I made this video, and I hope to make another one soon. Peace out.